Good morning, everybody. Good to see you again. So I was just talking with Christine, and I said, the way to learn something is to teach it. And she found out when she was teaching ballet, she was learning more. So I'm supposed to talk about mastery, how to become one with the masters. So I'm learning as I go along here. And I don't think you ever reach the end of the path. It would be very boring if after all of this, they gave you your harp and you sat around playing the harp all day for eternity. It would get very dull. So you're always looking for new things to challenge you, you know. And coming to Earth has definitely been a challenge for most of us. So talking about mastery, we should probably talk about what is a master. What does that mean to be a master? And this does not mean master over someone, like master-slave relationship. Although some people who are in the Indian path, they say your master or your guru is like your guide, and you should do whatever they tell you to do, even if it's jump off a cliff. And yeah, I would sort of disagree with that. First of all, there are very few truly enlightened masters left these days, and the ones that I met never told me what to do. That the real guidance comes from inside, you know. And because the essence of mastery is really to learn to get the guidance within yourself, not to be obedient to somebody else, you know. And so I think a master, it goes beyond enlightenment, actually. There are great beings, especially in India and the Himalayas, that are, you know, in the very, very high consciousness where they can merge with the infinite, and there's no awareness of the outer world at all. In fact, when the Chinese went into Tibet, they went into some caves and they found bodies there that were very emaciated, and they started to dispose of the bodies, and they discovered these beings were alive. They put them in a tub of warm water and they gradually come to life, and these were yogis that had gone so far out of the normal consciousness that they were not aware of the physical world at all. And, you know, that may be one form of mastery, but it's a form of experienced mental enlightenment that they were not capable of being in the world. Like if you said, your job is to go back in the world and raise a family, get a job and raise a family, they'd be completely at a loss how to do that. So how are you going to help humanity if you have no idea what humanity is going through? You know, I mean, there's some of these very great yogis in India, like Ramana Maharshi, who seemed to really be in that oneness, but still able to talk to people. But again, he could not give you marriage counseling, you know, or tell you what to do with your 2-year-old when it wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning and things like that, you know. So I regard mastery really as beyond enlightenment. That it's still nice to be able to tune in, to have access to that enlightened state of consciousness, that awareness of oneness, that you are one with all. You know, that everyone you see is an aspect of yourself, but to still be able to function, you know, to distinguish between the left side of the road and the right side of the road and not say all is one. It's not to be master over someone, but first to master yourself It's self-mastery is what it really is. And this gets very subtle. We can get to a state where in a certain type of situation where everything seems to be under control, but then you may move into a different situation and you realize there are things that irritate you. And that's very subtle, like to say that person is wrong, or why are they doing that? Don't they know the right way? I mean, yesterday we had potluck after the talk, and there was probably 8 women in the kitchen, and all trying to prepare the food simultaneously. Well, people were trying to eat the food while it was being prepared also. I know I decided I saw a bowl of avocados and said, I'll make some guacamole. Well, while I'm mashing up the avocados, there are people trying to eat it, and it kept disappearing, and I said, when is this going to stop disappearing? So, I wasn't seriously annoyed. In fact, I thought it was humorous, But I just was thinking, this is another lesson in mastery, And I noticed, there were a couple of women working on preparing the salad, and people were scooping salad out while they were preparing it. It was very easy to judge each other and say, that's wrong, or why are you doing that, and so on. But you look within and say, am I irritated? Am I judging that person? And to catch yourself and say, I don't know how that person was raised, I mean, my mother was very strict about certain things. So I see somebody doing something wrong and I hear my mother's voice inside saying, that's wrong, So we all have that kind of built-in tendency to judge because we're trying to do the right thing ourselves. And so we see someone else doing the wrong thing and it's easy to judge them. So that is also part of mastery. Is really observing those emotions, thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and being able to make peace with them and to have love and compassion for each other. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't say, maybe that wasn't the best way to do something, but at least there's no emotional sense of blame. And now there are beings who have achieved a very high level of mastery. What the word master in the West, we generally mean ascended masters. Now, this might equate to what in India would be called a Mahasiddha, although they have, like in India, a Babaji would be called a Mahasiddha. And I lived in the Himalayas with a man who had been a student of the physical Babaji, and this guy did not need to eat, slept maybe an hour or two a night, and I saw a picture of him 40 years later. He had not aged at all, and he hung out with other guys like that. It would be called, Mahasiddhas in India, but they were also not masters in the sense that they didn't know how to relate to women at all. They regard women as temptresses. Well, that's their own nature that they were not in control of, And, I met one of these yogis in town and I said, may I buy you tea? So we went into a chai shop. This was in Nainital. I was there visiting Neem Karoli Baba. And we went into this chai shop and I said, would you like a laddu? Those are these little desserts, And he said, yes. And then he said, oh, can I have another one? I said, yes. And can I have more? And he just, this guy had been meditating on the glacier for 3 months, And he came into town and suddenly here's this American buying him sweets. And then he looked around and he said, there are women in here. I can't be in here, So this guy could be on the glacier in bliss and not be bothered by the cold. He just wore like a sheet, So he could do the inner heat practices and be in very high state of oneness with the absolute, but he could not be in town. And when we left the cafe, he said, I've got to go back up on the glacier. That was too traumatic, was to have tea in town. So that's not really ultimate mastery, and you're not going to be able to help, people in the world that way. But they do transmit a certain consciousness to humanity, which is very beneficial also. So they all have their place. But generally, when I talk about masters, I mean the ascended masters. And these are beings who have raised their physical body into bodies of light. Now, they did not necessarily do this in the sense of what the Tibetans call attaining the rainbow body. There are some high Tibetan lamas that could actually dissolve the physical, raise the frequency so high that it would dematerialize. And people that witnessed this said that rainbows emanated from their bodies, and actually, like a foot might dematerialize, or then a hand or something, or the body would just shrink down very small and either completely dematerialize or just remain, 2 feet long. And this has been witnessed and documented. Well, some of these beings, ascended master can materialize and dematerialize. Now, but generally, once they achieve that, they don't keep coming in. Although I know someone witnessed Babaji, who's now an ascended master. He's not living in a cave in the Himalayas in a physical body, but he can appear physically to people. And I know someone, or I talked to someone, had a friend where Babaji visited him in the hospital, in a hospital room, looking just like he did in the pictures. Just, he's kind of naked from the waist up. And he went and visited this guy, and this guy had been sort of delirious. He wasn't sure if this was an apparition or a physical visitation. And he asked the nurse, did anybody just visit me? And the nurse said, oh yeah, that young guy who was half naked. So that was, Babaji responded to this guy and took that. So he is an ascended master now. There is I don't know if it's a new dispensation. I think it existed for a long time, but a person can actually leave the physical body, in other words, what we say die, and then ascend from their etheric body. And I know this for a fact that many people have done that. In fact, Godfrey Ray King, who gave these teachings of mastery in the Saint Germain Foundation and through the I Am books, the Green books, Unveiled Mysteries, the Magic Presence, the I Am Discourses, he gave these teachings about ascension, but he gave so much of his life to helping people that he did not have the time to do the meditation necessary to actually raise the physical body. So the physical body died. But then my teacher, Pearl, was present when they had the funeral for him. This is, I believe, at the Biltmore Hotel in Los Angeles. And her inner sight was opened, and she saw him, the masters around him, raising him into the ascended master octave. So she knows that he did ascend. And there are some of these masters that Madame Blavatsky talked about, and we don't know exactly how they ascended, but they, for a while, it seems like they were in Kashmir. Some people think they were in Tibet, although Tibetans never saw them. But they are now capable of materializing in a physical body. But see, during the Theosophical time, the movement, they did not talk about ascended masters. These masters were then in physical bodies, like Kutumi and El Moria. And but they are now ascended beings, but the Theosophical Society sort of never got that message, but anyway, it doesn't matter. There is, if you want to see pictures, the best pictures I know are the drawings by David Honore in a book called Through the Eyes of the Masters. And he has, I think, pictures of 7, 8, 9, approximately 9 masters. They're just pen and ink drawings, and they're quite accurate. You can feel the essence is there. There are artists today, very good artists, that do beautiful paintings of masterful beings, but I don't feel, they'll say this is Master so-and-so, but I don't feel they were really seeing that particular master. Like, there are all kinds of paintings of Saint Germain out now. And the best one is the one in the old original Unveiled Mysteries, the black and white, which is a picture that Saint Germain materialized and gave to Godfrey and said, this is what I really look like. And when I've seen him on the inner planes, that's what he looked like, Yeah, that's the one right there. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Peter, are there any women ascended masters?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and it's a shame that we don't hear more, but I would say Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Kuan Yin, I met actually Ananda May Mai 3 times on the street, had personal one-to-one contact with her, and she passed. And then one day I was sitting at my desk and I said to myself, I have her picture on my desk, and I looked at it and I said, I wonder if she ascended. And all of a sudden she was right there. She said, of course I ascended, And I find her very accessible, Nanda May Mai, and so she's really there. And so yeah, they're masters of male and female, and also many races. So that's why I don't like to use the term Great White Brotherhood anymore, because they don't call themselves great. That's kind of an ego trip, Great could mean large, but and they're not all white, and it's not just a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood as well. So I like Ascended Council of Light, something like that, So again, getting to actual practices that we can do, of course, the key to all of it is the statement, I am, what that means. And that's not something new that came with Godfrey Ray King. They have statements like that in India, Aham Brahmasmi. That means basically, I am God. Now, it's not something you tell to somebody else. Hey, do you know that I'm God? It's a realization you have within. And along with that is, well, you're a God too. In fact, Namaste means the God in me honors the God in you. So that's a very high state of mastery, was when you see everybody else as God too, that we're all rays of light from the same sun, So it's like we're all a big family. And so, it would be boring if we all had the same personalities and everything. But to know that love that you feel is the same love other people are feeling, and it's like drops of the ocean. A drop can say, well, I'm this drop or that drop, or you can add red dye or blue dye or green dye to the drops, but eventually they go back into the ocean. They're all the same ocean. So we're all drops from the same ocean of divine love and wisdom and power. So now there are a lot of people want to make contact with the masters, which is natural, because they are sort of the way showers and exemplars of what we want to become. But they will not allow us to become dependent on them. And that's why I say you have to be really careful. In fact, I would advise against going to someone that's going to channel a message from a particular master. When I first met Pearl, who was my teacher and was an assistant to Godfrey Ray King, she said, Saint Germain is teaching you something, like right now. I see him working with you. And I said, I don't hear a thing. And I said, would you channel to me what he's saying. And she said, he will not allow me to do that. You have to get it. You are getting it on a higher plane. And when the time is right to act, you will act according to what he has shown you, but you will perceive it as intuition. And I used to wake up my first year in Mount Shasta. I'd see a master by my bed. I would actually wide awake at night, and I'd see a master standing there talking to me. And I said, would you speak a little louder? I can't quite hear what you're saying, But they wouldn't, So they'd go talking on, and I realized later they were talking to my higher self. And I'd wake up in the morning. I really usually could not remember what they had told me, but I know my higher self did get it. And so it weakens you to go to someone else to find out what you're supposed to do. And so one of the things you can do to get guidance is really to meditate. The meditation Saint Germain gives in Unveiled Mysteries in the first chapter is meditate on like a sun in the center of your chest. And you know that your body is not really physical, it's mostly empty space. And what is not empty space is just energy, vibration, and thought. So there's no such thing as something truly solid. So when you invoke that light in the center of your being, it's penetrating every aspect of your being. And you just strengthen that light throughout your body, into the room, out into the world. And that's doing tremendous good for the world. So you keep strengthening that. And that's what Christine said yesterday, the threefold flame, or in India, they call the Jyoti. That's where God is anchored in your body. And it's that pulsation of that light that causes your heart to beat. Your heart picks up those signals. So, if you're trying to contact God, God is what's keeping you alive every second. So you don't have to climb a mountain or, go to a certain cathedral or struggle. God hears your every thought and feeling. And, mastery is just when you become more and more aware of that presence within you. And that presence, it says, you can do it your way if you want, the ego's way or the mental way, or you can do it my way. So at every moment, you're sort of given that choice. I thought I was driving straight ahead. I thought I was driving this, but there's something in me that wants to make a left turn here. Okay, well, I'll follow that. And then I feel, well, there's a parking space. I should park there, but I have no idea why. So I park and get out, and then there's someone on the sidewalk says, oh, Peter, I was looking for you, but I didn't know how to get hold of you. So God was guiding them and guiding me so we could meet, It wasn't a voice that, I would have been very nervous. 6 o'clock in the morning, I heard a voice that said at 9:12 and 15 seconds, be at this location on this street. And, I would have been all stressed out all morning thinking, am I going to be there on time? This way, it just happened naturally. So as you move more into mastery, there's more of just this flow where your life seems to flow in a natural way. And if something starts getting really too hard, like you're planning a trip and it doesn't work out, and you keep having one obstacle after another, maybe that's God showing you this isn't meant to be, that there's something else you're supposed to do. Because you can ask God to remove all obstacles, and if God increases the obstacles, God maybe is trying to tell you something, Mm-hmm. So gradually you become more one and one. You become more one with that inner presence, and it guides you in everything. And then, of course, if you do that meditation where you're observing your mind and your feelings all the time, that helps tremendously. So that's a part of what they call Vipassana. The first part of Vipassana is just observing your breath. That's like a mantra. It slows your mind down. So you're just feeling the breath rise and fall of your chest. And then you think, oh, I just had an idea. I heard the sound of a car. Well, that was a thought. Let it go. Come back to the breath. Oh, I just had a pain in my knee. Okay, that was the thought. Back to the breath. What am I going to, is there food in the fridge for dinner tonight? Oh, that's the thought. Let it go. And back to the breath. And gradually, the thoughts will come slower and slower. And then you're in that space between the thoughts where there's no mind. And then you can ask yourself, who is observing this? Who is observing my mind? Well, that's your higher mind. That's the master mind. So more and more, you're able to stay in that master mind. And that's your development of your own mastery, where you're aware of yourself at all times. You're aware of what the human mind, the human ego are thinking. Don't think you get rid of the ego totally, because it's a vehicle. You just want to purify the ego. All the selfishness, greed, fear, doubt, those things you get rid of. It's just like driving a car. It's nice to have a car that functions well with a clean windshield, but the car gets you around. So you need an ego to kind of function in the world, but it can be purified. It becomes purified, and you don't get your direction from the ego. You get that from the I am presence, the higher mind. So it's constant. So what you're mastering really is your mind and your ego. And you can be sure life will give you plenty of opportunity to work on that. And just when you feel you've pretty got it, you've got it pretty much under control, something else will come up, Like Ram Dass used to say, I traveled around India with Ram Dass for quite a while, and he said, if you think you're a master, go spend the weekend with your parents. You got plenty to work on. So another thing you can do is affirm, I am one with the master. Which master you want to feel more of? Like, I would like to feel more compassion. So I am one with Kuan Yin. And just feel, I am the presence of Kuan Yin. How is she feeling? What is it like to be Kuan Yin? So I am that. I am that compassion. And you feel it after a while, and that's very beautiful. You don't need a message from her. She doesn't want to give you a message, and she might say, well done, or something like that. But, and of course, there's Saint Germain and all the other masters. There's some of the masters of the seven rays that I just never seem to experience. And it's a little frustrating. I see their picture, and, I have a little hint about their work, but I can't say they come and talk to me. I know Master Hilarion. He's kind of the master scientist, and he helps out with technology. When I have a problem with my computer, I ask him for help, but he doesn't reprogram my computer. He doesn't say, enter this code or that code or anything. I sit there, I say, I'm waiting. Come on, how do I deal with this? But I know, just thinking his name, I know he's helping me on some other level, but it doesn't always come through as the tangible help that I would like. But that's making me develop that aspect of myself, so. Does somebody have a question? We probably have 7 higher selves on different frequencies. So ultimately, the I am presence would be that ball of light at the top, emanating the rainbow colors. But that presence is really not really aware so much of the human stuff. It's in a state of absolute bliss and oneness with all creation. And then as you come down a notch, you can see there is a faint form there. Face when I saw my own I am presence, it was just the face and the upper part of the body, and so I would call that maybe the Christ self. But these other selves do observe the human, see what you're going through. So as you start tuning in, just call it the higher self, not I'm going to level 3 of my fourth subtle body. It's just there is something within you that observes the mind, that observes your emotions, and you can call it your higher self or your etheric body. The name doesn't really matter. Pearl said Saint Germain had told her that he was determined that humanity would get the truth of the I am teachings, so he would not have to incarnate again. So he could have done that, and I believe that there are very high beings in Tibet and India who have reincarnated. There are beings they call tulkus, who they were maybe not what we'd call ascended masters, but they were liberated, very high level of mastery, and they incarnate over. In fact, the Dalai Lama, I really believe he was the reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama. And I don't know how far back that goes, but I feel he's definitely a liberated being, and he's here to serve as the focus of Chenrezig, who's the Lord of Compassion. Whether he actually is Chenrezig, I don't know. These beings are vast. Some of these beings, like the being Chenrezig, the embodiment of compassion, they work through many, many people, including us. When you say, I want to be more compassionate, it may come from that being. Or it might come through Jesus, or you don't know, or just your own higher self. But so anyway, the answer is yes, they can reincarnate. Well, basically, who you were in a particular lifetime dissolves. That's why the Buddhists say the self is not permanent. Now it's very interesting. Thomas and I were probing this the other day. I happened to find Buddha's last discourse or sutra. I think it's shortened form is Nirvana Sutra, where he said to his followers, you've given too much attention to the no self. There is a self, that it is the Atman. So a lot of Buddha's teachings were kind of in response to the current Hindu teachings, where you're worshiping some deity, or there's a lot of emphasis on that you're going to go on into heavenly realms and things like that. And he's trying to say that the ego dies, that dissolves, so, but there is a higher self that does endure. So in this sutra, Buddha said, the Atman is your Buddha nature, or your Buddha self, or whatever you want to call it. So that self does endure, but all the other who you were in the different lifetimes, all dissolves.
Sort of the energetic work.
You have the lesson from that lifetime. You have the lesson of it, the wisdom, and in fact, what these colored circles are, supposedly that is the wisdom that you have gained in the past lifetimes. It's the wisdom and the energy, the love, compassion that you have gained previously. So people's auras would be slightly different depending on what they've gone through. The question was, why are some people born with disabilities? And again, this is not by accident. that there's maybe some karma they need to work out. Maybe they did not have compassion for people's limitations in a past life. So now they came in with a certain limitation to learn compassion. And some of these children with disabilities, some of them have very great gifts also, So, in fact, we're all kind of born disabled to a certain degree, And I mean, even as a child, there's certain things you want to do you can't do, that are things that are frustrating. And so some of these children that have disabilities, you can feel they're very great souls. You're going to do a little meditation. So you get comfortable, try to make sure the spine is straight. You don't want to be slumped over. And it's good if you put the tip of the tongue against the roof of the mouth. That completes the bioelectric circuit there. And just observe your breathing, the rise and fall of your chest. And you can put your hands together like this, or you can have them on your knee like that, or clasping them. It's ever comfortable for you. You don't need to close your eyes, but you can close them a little bit or all the way. So you just be aware of the in-breath and the out-breath, the rise and fall of your chest. And if a thought comes up, you just label it thinking and let it go. Do I have any emotions or feelings? Just observe them and let them go. Now, who is observing, or what is observing? What is the observer? That is your I am presence, which is above you, that being of great light. And you can bring that down through the top of your head down into your heart and see it as a great sun. And put your attention on that sun in the center of your chest. Just bask in that light. You can feel I am the living light of God radiating out to humanity. I am peace on earth. I am the healing presence of God, going forth to heal wherever healing is needed. I am a master presence, going forth through my life, helping people wherever I am directed. I am, I know that I am.